This video is brought to you by Babbel. Stick around to hear more about the discount they're providing to the entire upper echelon community. Alright, today, finally, I'll be talking about something I see mentioned relentlessly on social media, while simultaneously exploring a topic that has been one of the most requested events I've ever seen as a creator. Simply put, I will be using a specific topic, in this case the Eliza Bleu situation, to jointly demonstrate my own process of doing research, at least on a basic level, as well as address the issues at hand in a two birds, one stone type of scenario that will hopefully provide value to those who are interested. No preamble, straight to the point. This is a demo topic. I don't actually care about this. I have things that I consider to be far more personally gratifying and interesting in my pipeline right now. But for the sake of demonstration, I'll proceed today by doing basic research on Eliza Bleu, as well as an overview of how to replicate that research for almost any topic you wish to pursue in the future. Why? Simple. The phrase, do your own research, is becoming an internet mantra of sorts. To some people, it's a deflection or a shield. For others, it can be a weapon in political or social discourse. And for an even larger group, it's just how we make sense of the world. But regardless of why you heard it or what you do in response to it, pretty much everyone out there has, at least at some point in their lives, and probably recently, been confronted by those words. Do your own research. The thing is, not all research is equal. Far from it, in fact. Depending on how, where, and when you look, the things you find will be radically different, your efficiency will be dramatically altered, and with modern society becoming a sort of twisted carnival we can't actually ever get out of, having the ability to hunt down information, establish context, and fully think through any given topic for oneself is beyond priceless. I'm not going to pretend I'm the best at all this. I still have a lot to learn, by far, but it is now becoming a rather effective career for me, so I figured I'd share what it is and how specifically that I do it. Here we go. Eliza Bleu. For those that don't know the name, Eliza Bleu is a somewhat famous internet personality of late who has become notorious for her connections to Elon Musk, as well as her work in anti-sex trafficking dialogue. I'm sure there's a better way to describe that, such as advocacy or different buzzwords, but for now, it's good enough. Most people don't know who she is, but a lot of people might recognize the name, because like it or not, a hefty chunk of the social media world is currently, as of the making of this demo video, absorbed by the scandal of her supposedly collapsing narrative. To be clear, this video isn't really a guide on how to hunt for unknown information as much as it's a guide on how to research an already well-covered and widely scrutinized topic for yourself individually, but the same things I outline here today will still, regardless of context, translate into almost any type of info digging you could ever possibly imagine. I myself have multiple sources in different industries. More recently, I've often gained access to non-public information on topics like this, source cultivation, prior contacts in a couple of industries, etc. But again, this is a baseline of internet research that can help with everything from dinner table conversation to investment due diligence and everything in between. Before going further, this video is brought to you by Babbel. Babbel is a language learning tool focused on real, usable conversations. Originally, I picked German myself and subsequently started moving through the curriculum, but contrary to my early education when I was back in school, Babbel is a digital medium where I can fully moderate my own pace and effectively learn a new language without some of the more demanding elements of a traditional course program. Babbel is actually proven to help you start speaking a new language in just 3 weeks. Focusing on usable conversations and common phrases, the lessons are designed by professional language teachers to be as effective as possible. Lessons will very quickly prepare you to have actual conversations about anything from travel to business or even relationships. I use Babbel on the computer, obviously. Basically, my entire life is on the computer for that matter. That's just the most effective platform for me, but they also have a very well-polished smartphone app that is extremely convenient. Babbel is one of the top language learning apps in the entire world, and after using it over the span of a couple of months, now, as I remain partnered with them for sponsored videos, I can easily see why that is. Side note, one reason to learn German, as well as other languages for that matter, that many people might not be aware of is that it will give me access to some of the premier cybersecurity communities around the world that I'm very interested to be included in. Since I've taken interest in these topics lately, with much to learn, I might add, it seemed like a logical choice, among many other reasons. If you click the link down below, you can get 60% off on your subscription and start speaking a new language in just 3 weeks today. Again, link down below for 60% off on your subscription. Big thank you to Babbel for sponsoring the channel. Alright, from the very first step, here we go. You've heard the name Eliza Bleu. You know it's a scandal of some kind. You know people are talking about it, predominantly on social media. But how should you go about this so that you aren't being led by the nose down a pre-scripted pathway that was built by someone else? Step 1. Start searching social media, specifically to establish a list of names. This step may sound incredibly jarring at first because social media is the land of unsubstantiated accusations, nothing but opinion as far as the eye can see, but that's actually what you want right now. Your goal is to compile a list of names for the people involved, as well as read and internalize some of these unsubstantiated allegations. Doing this is actually really straightforward, but I would caution everyone to not simply enter the words Eliza Bleu in a Google search or on Twitter and Facebook, because there are actually far superior ways of searching for specific information that, sadly, not a whole lot of people legitimately use. Relatively speaking, that is. First, using Google is a hell of a lot deeper than what most people seem to think. A couple rudimentary tricks, like this, for example, will lead to dramatically more refined results that let you breeze through what may otherwise have been a never-ending slog of scrolling and searching with very little discovery. Here's how it works. And again, sorry for those who already know any of this, but this is a basic, very basic overview. Please keep that in mind. It goes like this. Site, reddit.com, space, open parentheses, Eliza Bleu, close parentheses. This is actually a more advanced search that will now return popular results containing the exact words that you confine to the parenthetical, and it will also restrict the search to only Reddit results, making sure that you can see precisely what you are looking for. Here's a comparison of the two pages, where we can see that one of them returns only Reddit completely, the other devolves into what Google considers to be relevant pages a couple of screens down. Good, now the real work starts. Read these. For my own purpose, it's already been done. I went down the list and picked out most of the posts, or any ones that my gut told me at least might be relevant, and I moved on. But this can take you however long you're willing to research for, and I would say you should probably spend a fair bit of time on this particular step. Here's the thing. You can replicate this kind of search with any website. Instead of reddit.com, do facebook.com or twitter.com or even a news agency like nbc.com, and you'll return targeted results for that specific platform. There's some way more advanced Googling techniques that go far beyond this, but for a basic video, I don't want people to be overwhelmed, so I'll just link something down below in the description that covers the more advanced commands for anyone interested later on. As you do this, and this is very important, make a list of names. For the Eliza Bleu example, we obviously include her, but just a few minutes of research into these Reddit threads will unearth a wealth of information about Eliza, such as a prior name of Eliza Cuts, which was her moniker during a brief engagement, allegedly, to My Chemical Romance singer Gerard Way. By itself, not much, but when you really dig in here, there are many different aliases, pieced together by internet sleuths around the world, and we're simply scrolling through and finding them after the fact, such as Eliza Cuts, Eliza Knows, and Eliza Morthland. This is where it gets interesting. No one actually knows what is or is not true from a Reddit thread in particular, because Reddit very often does not give citations. If there are citations, that's great, check them out, but for now, mostly just focus on your list of names. Also, don't exactly be afraid to go off on a few tangents during this step. It's one of the larger steps after all, and that can be kind of healthy. If you see that your subject happens to be mentioned heavily in a particular subreddit on more than one occasion, let's say, or that there are allusions to something larger in the background, like the My Chemical Romance thread, start to spice up your search with a few additional things like Gerard Way or drama or anything similar, and exploring precisely what it is these initial threads might be referencing. During my own process, I came up with this list right here of all the names that I saw and also thought would be relevant to the story. Your list will probably vary to a degree, but it should be somewhat similar, at least on a basic level, after scouring social media. There is Eliza Bleu, obviously, also known as Eliza Cuts, Eliza Knows, Eliza Siep, however the hell you say that, or Eliza Morthland. Then there is Jeremy Hambley, a YouTuber known as The Quartering, who has posted numerous videos about the subject and created some lengthy Twitter threads as well aimed at criticizing her. There is Tim Pool, a podcast host who seems to now be embroiled in controversy himself as a result of all this. And lastly, Elon Musk. Those names are on my list. Maybe some different ones are on yours. My list actually also includes names like Manuel DeFango, who was one of the first and loudest advocates against Eliza for unexplained reasons, but I'm not expecting anyone else to dig that deep, at least not on a basic level, and that's where we get into crazy conspiracy waters, but the bare bones should be there. A bunch of different names for Eliza, a few critics, and someone who apparently got a bit caught up in the scandal. Now you have to look at each name individually. This is a partially unique example because Eliza Bleu seems to have at least 5 separate digital identities at this point in time, but the framework of research is still, relatively speaking, the same. Start searching for those names in a parenthetical and reading what you find. This is the most boring part, but it's actually probably the most crucial as well. If you want to spice it up, you can add a keyword you feel is relevant, maybe, in its own quotation marks, like fraud or breaking, to encourage different types of results, but this is just trial and error with a lot of reading, no matter how you tackle it. I would advise taking detailed notes if you can, but yeah, this is basically your bread and butter. Keyword searches. However, that's not enough to make an entire video, so I'll go a bit deeper. Relatively quickly, at least for most people running down a few searches of these individual names, we can find that Eliza Morthland is her actual real name. Eliza Bleu, originally Eliza Morthland, is the daughter of a Republican political candidate out of Illinois, and having found this, now his name gets to go on the list as well. Here's where it gets a bit more detailed. Doing all of these searches will build out your roster, and after an unknown and highly individual amount of time, you should start to feel at least a bit more confident about the general picture. Still no proof of much per se, no interesting scandalous angles, but we're starting to get the gist. But now you need to start looking for companies. This website right here called Open Corporates is one of the best places to start looking for companies that are connected to your list of names, because any one of the people on that list could easily be running some sort of operation under an LLC or some sort of shell company. Maybe there's dirt, maybe there's nothing, but start going through your list of names and looking at what corporate entities they are at all attached to. The way to do this is by making sure that the officers selection is checked off and then searching precise names. Be careful. You can often end up with multiple people with the exact same name listed on separate companies, so anything you find here has to be cross-referenced somewhere else, which shouldn't be too difficult if it's real. But for the example version of Eliza Bleu, we really didn't find much. For a better example, this is where some of the information on another story I ran into came from, about Mario Nafal. His businesses are listed, such as IBC, which led to more names and further scrutiny, so while it's possible you won't actually find anything important during this phase, it's also possible that you will. Again, keep writing down the names of the companies you find, especially when you believe that those companies are actually tied to the specific people that you're looking into. Next up, you need a little bit of money, as well as an account on this website called Pacer. It's not much money, but you will be billed by raw number of searches and documents downloaded. It's like 10 cents a page or something like that. I don't know. So anyone watching should be well aware that thorough research of a person or a business in this capacity might cost you a few dollars. With your Pacer account, once you have one, it's time to start looking for court cases. This can be the entry point for much more interesting discoveries. This has been the make or break step for me on multiple of the videos I've done, but what you're going to do is start running down your list of names, both official corporate names for businesses and personal names for individuals. Using the advanced search function, look for all the names that you think are the most interesting first. In this case, I went through and searched for all of Eliza's known aliases, of course, as well as her father, and a couple more that I found along the way. Nothing came up, even with some tweaking, so I spent a few dollars with no actual revelations, but such is life. It does happen from time to time, and we're far from done. Depending on what you find here, in your particular case, you can keep digging, start looking up different company names or other individuals, but be careful not to go too far down the rabbit hole, because getting broadly disconnected from the actual core of the initial topic can waste a lot more time than it's worth if you're not organized. Just be careful. Once that's done, depending on what you found, you should have a pretty good knowledge base to go off of. You've taken the social media temperature with targeted searches, you have a list of names, you have a list of associated companies, if there are any, and you've delved into whether or not there are or have been cases against them, the individuals or the companies, but now it's time to put it all together. This is where a whole lot of small things eventually coalesce into a larger picture. For starters, if you see that Twitter, for example, seems to be an epicenter of the discourse, like it is for the Eliza Bleu situation in this example, it's time to start researching a little bit there individually. This is going to sound rather obvious, but it is absolutely necessary to understand the advanced searching functions on Twitter, or any other platform for that matter. An alternative example would be YouTube, when searching for videos with specific people in them, or videos from a particular time period, but for the sake of simplicity, I'll confine it to Twitter as a demonstration. Get familiar with advanced searching so you can do things like this. This is a history of all interactions sent by Eliza Bleu to Elon Musk, and you can get a hell of a lot more targeted than even that. Knowing how to find information is infinitely more important and valuable than actually having it, because if you can't find it, you can never properly understand anything, no matter what you do. In the case of Eliza Bleu, this really just gives us a much better picture of how she became famous, because traversing back through the logs, a discerning viewer will see that she experienced radical social media growth in the aftermath of Elon Musk pulling her into his orbit. To further check something like that, we can use what's called Social Blade, where we can see that her enormous growth spike perfectly corresponds to the time frame when Elon Musk began to converse directly with her. That's all well and good, but why does any of this matter? In truth, it doesn't. Most of the stories and topics you pick for actual legitimate research don't matter and never make a difference in anything or go anywhere, but having gone through the process with this particular example, what do we know? We know that Eliza Bleu gained massive popularity on the coattails of Elon Musk while advocating against sex trafficking. We know that she has multiple identities, and because of the content posted by her critics, the people on our list of names, which we should have watched thoroughly by now, we also know that she has a checkered past of clout farming and chasing fame. On top of this, we know that she is the daughter of a former politician. We know that there are no relevant companies or court documents tied to her directly in this particular case, which means she seemingly never filed anything under her list of names in the court system against her alleged traffickers, at least not anything we can find. And we know that the social media temperature has turned on her very, very hard in the past couple of weeks. And of course, there's more. Depending on how deeply you pursue any of these individual steps, you'll probably have many more things that you wish I did or did not mention right now. But the fundamental building blocks are there. And at this point, you should have a fairly good overview of what's been going on. And when I say fairly good, okay, I'm just going to be honest, I mean way better than nearly everyone else talking about whatever subject you happen to have researched, which is excellent. However, we're not done. This is where you actually start reading news articles and opinion pieces because you have, over the course of however many hours this ends up taking, built up a reasonable foundation. Presumably, to fully understand, you would now be aware of Eliza Bleu's personal history. You would know about her feud with the quartering, the collateral damage slamming into Tim Pool, and that the picture is murky at best surrounding her story of being trafficked, but there's more. Once you start reading op-eds or looking at mainstream media sources, the goal is to see if what you found matches what they are deciding to say. Also keep in mind that making heavy use of the find in page function can help you out a lot. Open an article, search some phrases or names, and read the relevant portions or move on. It's a really good time saver. Not everyone is going to open every web page and read the entire thing. You need to get faster with your information. That's a really good tip. Depending on the topic, this can either be infuriating or captivating, but for this particular example, it's kind of both. On one side, you'll probably find, with just a few general searches on this particular topic, things like this, where Eliza's own friends are hesitant to believe her story and dispute many of the individual details according to the Daily Beast. On the other hand, you'll find things like this, where a writer in Tim Pool's media company has written a roughly 20,000 word puff piece about her, which is just part one apparently, that spends more time sanitizing her reputation than listing any actual facts. Because of your pre-existing research that all of you watching have hopefully done, this is where you have finally earned the right to make up your own mind. I can't tell you what to think, but using these basic steps, here's a generalized overview of what I found and what I think. Eliza Bleu has a long history of chasing internet stardom deliberately. She has affiliations with a bevy of internet celebrities, such as Jeffree Star, going back through history, and creators as well, culminating in a symbiotic relationship between her and Elon Musk, where she managed to make him look really, really good on the topic of cleaning up Twitter. The thing is, it doesn't seem like any of that was actually real. From what I could find, the hashtags that Eliza championed as being removed, which heavily contributed to her rise in fame, weren't actually ever removed or even properly addressed really until an NBC News investigation nearly a month later. On top of this, Eliza has extremely spotty knowledge of how the CSAM hashing system even works. That's an individual rabbit hole I went down after reviewing the tweet thread from a user named Open Secret on Twitter, which makes me question the very core of what she does, advocates for, and brands herself as. From a broader perspective, she seems to have gone through multiple identities on her road to fame, which resulted in a lot of suggestive content being produced under different names that she kind of seems to have lied about. I won't do a 20-minute exposition dump here, especially because if I did the first part of the video even properly, most of you will know at least a little bit about this already. But basically, she was in videos shot by World Star Hip Hop as a video vixen, I guess it's called, but then claimed the videos were non-consensual. This resulted in a wave of bans and suspensions on Twitter of anyone criticizing her or posting a link/screenshot of any sort to that video. Most prominently, two people, individually, one named Brittany Venti, the other Jeremy from the quartering, because it was, in Eliza's own words, non-consensual. Yet, World Star Hip Hop seems to have explicitly denied this, stating that it was entirely consensual and that they own official copyright of the work. Meanwhile, two separate media entities, Tim Pool's outlet and the Daily Beast, attacked the story from entirely opposite angles, with one running some sort of quasi-PR whitewash, as the other undermines the very core of Eliza's entire trafficking story, which leads to a vicious reality where this girl is now an internet pariah and hero simultaneously to different groups. She has single-handedly conjured up questions about Elon Musk's free speech advocacy because of censorship on Twitter, because she might be friends with the head of trust and safety at Twitter. She has roped multiple commentators into an all-out war with big tech privacy complaints. And all of this because she doubled down again and again and again in the face of small but growing questions. I won't go so far as to say whether or not I think she's flat out lying. I don't even really care enough about the story to go down that road. But if you made it this far, if you found even some of this for yourselves, congratulations. This is the most basic version of do your own research. If people like it, I can do a much more advanced one in the future with some more complex tools and searchable databases, but for now, that's it. If you want to support the channel, check out the links down below. Locals, Patreon, merchandise, social media, another creator to check out, YouTube alternatives, platform alternatives, the video sponsor, Babbel, of course, etc., etc. But I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.